Hello and welcome to an episode of Agri Art. One of the few positive legacies of war is cultural elements that are left behind. In Eastern Europe, the chief legacy of the Ottoman Empire invasion and the expulsion thereof was the introduction of apricots. In the wake of World War II, the United States obtained access to various forms of art from bonsai to anime from Japan. We'll be talking about the former. After the war in 1945, a series of occupation forces and later trade representatives appeared within Japan. During this time, there were an extensive number of businessmen and what we would call influencers moving from west to east on business trips and vacations. These people become exposed to carefully trained but natural-looking trees. These were known as bonsai. In 1976, these bonsai trees grew from being a novelty to a great interest of the American elite. This, in combination with immigration from Japan, led to a great mythology surrounding how bonsai were made. And this mythology began to permeate the United States, culture and all. This mythology was compounded by the fact that a great many gardens were lost in the war, and in the post-war era, most bonsai gardens died from neglect. In the mid-50s, non-living bonsai and gift cards were extensively made as ornaments. Indeed, during this time, magazines were publishing articles on how to make non-living bonsai, such as the popular magazine Living. In the 60s, the knowledge of how to create and maintain bonsai would begin to enter the United States through greater trade routes between nations. In the 70s, many local groups consisting of Japanese immigrants and American students that went to Japan would begin to appear to showcase how to make bonsai. These would be the foundations of the California Bonsai Society, which began partially within the 50s, but would be completed and codified in 1967. The American Bonsai Society would also form during this era. This is how bonsai came to the United States, but bonsai did not first appear within Japan. First known example of bonsai, or as the Chinese call it, pensai, I definitely butchered that, my apologies, occurred in China. The first introduction of bonsai to Japan came with the introduction of Buddhism. In China proper, the bonsai mythology began in Horai-san, a sacred mountain in the Taoist religion, and involved pruning trees in mimicry of the trees found growing in the mountainside. This was done by growing trees in pots, and through careful pruning, the bonsai could take shape. This was a real form of this practice and existed between 960 and 1279 CE. The exchanges that brought the full adoption of the horticultural art of bonsai into Japan happened during periods of trade between Japan and China between 794 and 1192 CE. The first known artwork in Japan depicting bonsai was in 1309. But the first known instruction manual on how to create bonsai in Japan was written in 1095. This shape remained popular in the 12th and 13th century among the aristocrats. In the mid-13th century, the apricot, cherry, and pine became the fan favorites for making bonsai trees, effectively becoming modern bonsai. This became a tulip mania situation, and this mania lasted between 1615 CE and 1868 CE. Following that, it declined, but even after that decline, the art remained popular, although not as much as it was before. The late 19th century saw industrialization of the first urban centers in Japan, and most art at that time had bonsai elements within their paintings. During the 20th century and post-World War II, there was a general bonsai resurgence, with the center of this movement being centered in Kyoto. The practice of this art has stabilized. The first introduction to bonsai in the UK was a bit different, and through earlier and longer periods of time in comparison to the United States. The first known traveler from the UK was Mary Stopes. She was sent to compare how the upper crust of England lived in comparison to the upper crust of Japan. She talked about bonsai trees, saying, "He has also a fine collection of dwarf trees, and I watched one of his gardeners pruning a mighty forest of pines, 3 inches high, growing on a headland jutting out to the sea in a porcelain dish." Robert Fortune, the famous plant collector, also made many observations of this bonsai practice. These include bonsai gardens that imitate a landscape on a much smaller scale, as well as bonsai gardens with the trees shaped into animals. He noted a similarity between Chinese and Japanese bonsai, with both explorers doing their work in the mid to late 19th century. In 1909, in London, Mr. Sato did an exposition of a great many bonsai plants, many of which were sold in the United States between 1911 to 1913. Due to a lack of information at that time, most of the bonsai died, however. And that's about all the notable history I can come up with for bonsai history. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you really enjoyed it and think you can donate, you can do so at Buy Me a Coffee, link in the description below. Thank you for watching.